The Marvel Universe is teeming with megalomaniacal villains, characters like Ultron, Thanos, and Magneto, whose ambitions often push them to the brink of madness and threaten the entire world. Yet, for all their superpowers and brilliant plans, what if the key to stopping these villains wasn't just a gamma-radiated punch or an intergalactic battle, but a deeper understanding of psychology? If the Marvel Universe wants to cut down on world-ending crime, maybe it's time they invested in some good therapists. Today, we're exploring what makes one of Marvel's most notorious villains tick. Disclaimer: this video is intended for entertainment and speculative purposes only. The content presented is not meant to provide professional advice. If you're seeking guidance or support regarding psychological issues, please consult a qualified professional. Some of us might have an occasional hankering to blow up the moon or lay waste to entire planets, but sometimes seeking treatment and talking it out is preferable to cloning Spider-Man and slowly driving him insane. Victor Von Doom, aka Dr. Doom, aka oh my god, he's about to activate the ultimate nullifier, is one of Marvel's most enigmatic villains. Ruthless, brilliant, and relentless, Dr. Doom is a character whose motivations are as intricate as his elaborate schemes for world domination. But could there be a deeper psychological underpinning to his actions? The answer is unequivocally yes, of course there is. Today we will delve into the complexities of Dr. Doom's psyche to uncover what truly drives him. With a preliminary understanding of his psychological profile established, we can begin to explore potential diagnoses and treatment options that might help Doom choose a path of self-improvement rather than a path that eventually leads to him becoming Galactus and devouring the galaxy. Origin and early trauma. To understand Doom, like with anything else, we need to start at the beginning. Dr. Doom's origins are deeply rooted in the tragic and complex backgrounds of his parents. Victor Von Doom's father, Werner Von Doom, was a skilled healer in the mystical land of Latveria, while his mother Cynthia was a powerful Romani witch. Werner's medical expertise, although considerable, was ultimately insufficient to save Cynthia from a fatal wound, leading to her death when Victor was still young. The tragic twist in his father's life came when Werner was chased by the regime of a local baron, who sought revenge for Werner's failure to cure the baron's wife. Werner Von Doom eventually died protecting his son from the harsh winter cold. This double loss instilled in Doom a deep-seated sense of injustice. A psychologist would classify this trauma as adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, which can have long-term effects on behavior, emotional regulation, and self-perception. Furthermore, the death of his mother at the hands of mystical demonic forces, and of his father, a man of science who sought to help those around him, would irrevocably shape Doom's later education and career. His mother's practice of dark magic introduced him to mysticism, while his father's failure as a healer instilled in him the belief that science alone was inadequate. According to social learning theory, Doom internalized these experiences, and compensatory control theory suggests the trauma of losing both parents drove him to seek mastery of both fields of mysticism and medical science. Compensatory control theory is a psychological concept that suggests individuals seek to maintain a sense of control and order in their lives when faced with uncertainty or perceived threats. According to this theory, when people experience a loss of control or feel vulnerable, they may engage in behaviors or adopt beliefs that restore a sense of control and stability. This can involve embracing rigid structures, adhering to strict rules, or even resorting to supernatural or religious beliefs to compensate for the lack of control they feel in other areas of their lives. Ultimately, Doom believed that by combining the rationality of science with the power of mysticism, he could overcome their individual limitations, control his destiny, and prevent future loss, fulfilling a deep psychological need for power and control over chaos. This compulsion to control every aspect of his life is a hallmark of several psychological conditions. The need for control and perfectionism, OCD or OCPD. Doom's drive for control manifests in a near-obsessive perfectionism. His infamous experiment at the university, where he ignored warnings from Reed Richards, resulted in a catastrophic explosion that scarred his face for life. This event marked the beginning of Doom's rigid refusal to accept his own flaws or mistakes. This refusal to accept responsibility for failure is rooted in a psychological defense mechanism known as externalization, where he projects blame onto external sources to protect his grandiose self-image. Externalization is when individuals blame external factors for their own faults. In this case, it can promote and influence both obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, or obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, OCPD, in unique ways. Though they sound similar, obsessive-compulsive disorder and obsessive-compulsive personality disorder have distinct characteristics that differentiate them. OCD is marked by the presence of distressing obsessions, intrusive, unwanted thoughts and compulsions, repetitive behaviors, or mental acts performed to reduce anxiety. Individuals with OCD often recognize the irrational nature of their symptoms, but feel compelled to engage in rituals to alleviate their distress. These obsessions and compulsions significantly disrupt daily life, causing considerable impairment in functioning and interpersonal relationships. In contrast, obsessive-compulsive personality disorder is defined by persistent focus on orderliness, perfectionism, and control. Unlike OCD, individuals with OCPD don't experience intrusive thoughts or compulsions, but instead show rigid perfectionistic traits that impact their behavior and relationships. They see their need for control as rational and essential. This difference in self-perception and its impact on daily life distinguishes OCPD from OCD, making proper recognition and treatment key. And so, OCD involves attributing intrusive thoughts and compulsions to external threats or supernatural forces, justifying rituals as responses to perceived dangers. In OCPD, externalization manifests as blaming others for failures and inefficiencies, allowing individuals to uphold their self-image of control and perfection. This defense mechanism helps protect self-esteem and maintain a sense of stability in both disorders. This is exemplified by the science experiment in college that disfigured Doom's face. Instead of acknowledging his own calculation error, Doom blamed others, particularly Reed Richards, illustrating a self-serving bias, where successes are attributed to personal ability and failures are blamed on outside forces. His ego could not tolerate the idea of personal fallibility, leading him to externalize fault and and intensify his obsession with mastering both science and mysticism to exert control and avoid feeling powerless or flawed. On the subject of rituals, we see here a fascinating connection. Belief in mysticism can amplify obsessive-compulsive disorder symptoms by integrating supernatural elements into compulsive behaviors. Individuals with OCD manage intrusive thoughts through rituals, and when mysticism is involved, these rituals may aim to maintain spiritual balance or appease mystical forces. This often leads to magical thinking, where actions are believed to influence unrelated events, and superstitious rituals like prayers to prevent harm. Mystical beliefs can also heighten fears of contamination or harm, reinforcing compulsive behaviors to protect against perceived spiritual threats, further intensifying OCD symptoms. So what's the verdict, Doc? Is it OCD or OCPD? Well, why not both? An individual may have OCD characterized by distressing obsessions and compulsions aimed at reducing anxiety, alongside OCPD traits such as extreme perfectionism and preoccupation with orderliness. For example, someone might experience intrusive thoughts and engage in compulsive rituals, OCD, while also displaying a rigid adherence to rules and need for control in various aspects of their life, OCPD. The presence of both disorders can complicate the clinical picture. The compulsions in OCD might focus on specific fears or anxieties, while the personality traits in OCPD involve broader patterns of behavior and self-perception. Narcissism and megalomania. But there's more to Doom than just control and perfectionism. He's also a textbook example of narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. Individuals with NPD often have a grandiose sense of self-importance, a constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. We all know how pervasive and quick diagnoses of NPD from disgruntled former partners have been of late, but if anyone can be said to suffer from narcissistic personality disorder, it's Doom. And I say suffer, but he appears to be thriving from it. Narcissism can offer benefits such as heightened self-confidence, which aids in pursuing ambitious goals and excelling in competitive settings. Narcissists often display strong leadership and charisma, effectively motivating others. Additionally, their robust sense of self-worth helps them bounce back from setbacks and criticism. However, these advantages are best balanced with empathy and self-awareness to mitigate potential negative impacts on relationships. Doom genuinely believes that he's the only one who can save the world, and that his way is the only right way. His actions are not just about power, they're about proving a superiority to the world, particularly to his nemesis, Reed Richards. This intense need for recognition, paired with a sense of entitlement and an expectation of special treatment, fits the profile of narcissistic personality disorder. But it's not all snips and snails and puppy dog's tails. Narcissism can be detrimental due to its tendency to foster shallow relationships and a lack of empathy, which can lead to interpersonal conflicts and social isolation. Narcissists often struggle with accepting criticism and may react with hostility or defensiveness, impairing personal and professional growth. Their inflated self-view can also result in unrealistic expectations and risky behavior, potentially causing significant personal and financial setbacks. To this point, Dr. Doom has created for himself a literal mask, which has become a crucial psychological shield that protects his grandiose self-image and reinforces his narcissistic tendencies. By concealing the facial disfigurement from a failed experiment, a failure he caused, the mask helps Doom avoid exposing what he views as personal humiliation, thus preserving his inflated sense of self-worth. This concealment allows him to project an image of invulnerability and control, essential to his narcissistic personality. Furthermore, the mask symbolizes his descent into villainy and his inability to acknowledge failure, as it represents his need to protect his self-image and shield himself from any perceived threats to his ego. And yet, Doom is not purely evil. He's a paradox, a dictator who genuinely cares for his people, a genius scientist who also dabbles in sorcery, a villain who sometimes aligns with heroes to fight greater threats. A true example of Dr. Doom acting selflessly occurs during the infamous Iron Man arc. After the events of Secret Wars, Doom tries to atone for his past and takes up the mantle of Iron Man in Tony Stark's absence. As the infamous Iron Man, Doom genuinely seeks to do good, fighting villains like the Hood and assisting the Avengers, without his usual lust for power. In this storyline, he focuses on redemption, working to protect the world rather than control it, marking a significant shift towards heroism and selflessness. These contradictions suggest a possible diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, or BPD. BPD is characterized by instability in relationships, self-image, and emotions. Doom's fluctuating alliances, his deep-seated fear of abandonment, and his intense and unstable interpersonal conflicts, particularly with Reed Richards, could indicate this disorder. Dr. Doom's behavior and psychological profile exhibit several traits consistent with BPD. BPD is characterized by intense, unstable relationships and self-image, emotional instability, and a profound fear of abandonment. Doom's relationships with others, including his complex dynamics with his allies and adversaries, often display the dramatic swings and idealization-devaluation patterns seen in BPD. His extreme reactions to perceived slights or failures, such as his violent retaliation against those he feels have wronged him, reflect the emotional instability and impulsivity typical of the disorder. Additionally, Doom's grandiose self-image and chronic dissatisfaction, coupled with a deep-seated fear of failure and a relentless drive to prove himself, align with the unstable self-concept and identity disturbances observed in BPD. His frequent oscillation between feelings of invincibility and deep-seated inadequacy, along with his manipulative and controlling behavior, further supports the diagnosis of BPD. So what diagnosis best fits Dr. Doom? The truth is, Doom displays characteristics of multiple personality disorders, not multiple personality disorder, which may or may not be a thing. These disorders include obsessive-compulsive disorder, obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and elements of borderline personality disorder. His behavior is driven by a complex blend of early trauma, a need for control, a desire for recognition, and a fear of vulnerability. Individuals exhibiting a combination of obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and elements of borderline personality disorder are often found in high-stress, high-power environments. For instance, some CEOs and executives might display extreme extreme perfectionism, a need for control, and a grandiose sense of self-importance, paired with emotional instability under stress. This blend of traits can lead to a rigid management style, entitlement, and unstable interpersonal relationships, particularly when faced with pressure and a desire for recognition. Similarly, professionals in high-stakes fields like medicine or law, and public figures such as celebrities may show these combined traits as well. Surgeons and lawyers might be meticulous and controlling, with a strong need for validation and potential emotional volatility. Celebrities driven by perfection and a craving for public admiration may exhibit emotional instability and turbulent relationships. This complex mix of traits affects their behavior and interactions, providing insight into their challenges and dynamics in their respective high-pressure environments. But diagnosing a fictional character is never an exact science. What makes Doom such a compelling villain is his multifaceted personality. He's not just a madman with a mask. He's a tragic figure wrestling with his own demons, making him one of Marvel's most enduring characters. Treatment approach. With preliminary understanding of the diagnosis established, we can now proceed with formulating and implementing an appropriate treatment plan, ideally one that will lessen the wanton damage perpetrated by Victor Von Doom, PhD. If a psychological professional were to treat Dr. Doom, they would likely start with a comprehensive assessment to understand the full scope of his personality traits, including obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and borderline personality disorder. Treatment would focus on building a therapeutic alliance, given Doom's high level of mistrust and grandiose self-perception. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, could help challenge his perfectionism and rigid thinking patterns, and dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, might aid in managing intense emotions, impulsive behavior, and strained interpersonal relationships. Therapy would also delve into his early trauma and unmet emotional needs to address his deep-seated fears of vulnerability and rejection. In addition to therapy, a psychiatrist might consider prescribing certain medications to help manage some of Doom's symptoms. For his obsessive and rigid thinking patterns, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, such as fluoxetine, Prozac, or sertraline, Zoloft, could be used to alleviate anxiety and reduce compulsive behaviors. Mood stabilizers like lamotrigine, Lamictal, or low-dose antipsychotics such as aripiprazole, that took me 10 takes, might be considered to help regulate intense emotional swings and impulsive actions, especially if he exhibits symptoms consistent with borderline personality disorder. However, given his extreme intelligence and resistance to perceived weakness, medication adherence could be a significant challenge. Humanizing the Villain. Dr. Doom's complex blend of obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and elements of borderline personality disorder results in a figure whose ruthlessness and ambition are counterbalanced by a deep-seated belief in his capacity to improve the world. This combination of traits, while often leading to supervillainous behavior, paradoxically equips him with the determination and vision to enact significant change. For instance, Doom's rule over Latveria, though often marked by authoritarian methods, has led to a notable reduction in crime and an improvement in the country's infrastructure. His extreme need for control and perfectionism drives him to create a stable, orderly society, highlighting how his unique psychological profile, despite its flaws, enables him to achieve results that align with his ultimate goal of a better world. This irony underscores how a complex personality, shaped by these disorders, can sometimes manifest in ways that, while harsh, contribute to tangible positive outcomes. Ultimately, Dr. Doom challenges us to see beyond the label of villain. He asks us to consider the psychological complexities that drive human behavior, even when that behavior is terrifyingly grandiose. So what do you think, Drive Dooms? Do you agree with this diagnosis, or do you see him in a different light? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the minds of Marvel's most compelling characters.